Yeah, there you go. Hang on. So it's a simple app. You will be you will get the source code, and it demonstrates the point. So what you don't see now, I'm just using the tab key to navigate through that. And unfortunately, I am. Let's see. There are some. You don't see. Now it's down there on some tab buttons, which I don't get on there. So it will come up again, and you can do the same with the back tab. Tap around here, it's cycling around, you can select things, then you get a list view which is backed up by some C++ model. You can tap through that forward, backward, and you see it's changing to a different component up here to that toolbar. You can select things here. Okay, you want to enter, you want to make Munich a bit smaller, for example, so you can do that here. And it's all with the tab keys and the return key. So no mouse used. Of course, you can also use the mouse, so it would be a touch. So it works both. So you can select that. So back here. So you say, well, input with a keyboard input with just the keys is a bit cumbersome, but there are things which work better with touch and things which work better with keyboard navigation. And one more thing so that's the key navigation I will show. And the other thing is I said changing the language. Which key is that? Probably that. So while there's not much written here, so it's now English, and the language is changed while dynamically. So while you are running the application, it's not restarted or anything, works on every page. And the other thing I will show a little bit, which all uses just property binding in QML. So if you don't know how to solve things, it's often property binding coming to your rescue. You can also change the theme. So I have the colorful theme, and I have the grayscale theme. And it's a quick thing how to do that. And in a car, in a navigation system, for example, you typically have a day theme and you have a night theme. So back to the slides. So that's actually what key navigation is about. So on the top right, you have the rotary knob / joystick and button of a BMW. So that's the BMW iDrive. You can rotate that knob, you can press it. Probably you can even push it in the 4 directions, and then you have some special function keys. That's how you navigate your UI with keys. That's where it comes in. So, or on the top, on the left, you have the ODMMI. So also this button down there, this round thingy, that's the thing sending the key events to your GUI. And it's sent via CAN bus to your terminal, to your display. It's sent via CAN bus, and then you have to get it into your GUI. So you get some CAN messages. You are saying, well, you rotated it by this angle or that angle, you pushed it, whatever. And then you have to translate that in a queued event and send this queued event into the event queue, and then it's normal handling of keys in QML, as normal key handling can be in QML. There are other places where key navigation is used. You see on the left-hand side, it's a harvester, not the one I'm working on, and they are actually they're actually using this key, this big key, to bring up some rotary menu. Then they select the parameter they want to change, and then they take the other key back here to change the value up or, and down. And they have a secondary rotary cyclic menu here and a second button there. Doesn't look like a great user interface, but it sells. And here from a tractor, so it's a touch screen, but think about a harvester. The cabin is huge. You have an armrest there. You would have to bend forward to reach the touch screen. So that's why a knob here in the middle console comes in handy. And even in a BMW, try to reach the touch screen. It's not easy. You will hardly reach it. It's too big a car. And it's distracting then, I think. Okay. And so there are some advantages of key navigation. So one certainly is you don't have to look at the screen. You can do it blindly. Think about it. When you touch, you have to look, where do I have to touch? And your view goes off the street. And you crash against the next tree. Hopefully not. And so that's one reason for having key navigation. It's less distractive. So it might sound a bit ancient to have something like key navigation still around in 2013, but it isn't. And also think about it's a real problem for the car makers to recognize, say, a swipe. You are not on steady ground in a car, and on a tractor, even less. It's vibrating, so your swipe isn't a smooth swipe. It's a whoop, 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 a jump. So try to recognize that as a swipe. And be sure that Mercedes, BMW is putting a lot of thought into that. How to recognize correct gestures. It's tricky. You don't have the problem with the rotary knob. So enough of introduction. Let's jump into the darker corners of QML, and that's keyboard focus, key navigation. So active focus, what is that? So a QML item needs active focus to receive key events. If your item doesn't have active focus, you don't see any key events. So that's the first thing. If you want your item to work with keys, you have to get the active focus there. And I'll show you how you do it and how difficult it might be. Only a single item can have active focus, and you have this property, a read-only property, to check whether an icon has active focus or not. You can force the active focus on an item with this function. So then you make sure, yeah, it's there. And then you have this focus property, which first of all, if you set it to true, well, it might do something, it might not do anything. So it's just a request. It requests, I want to have focus if my enclosing focus scope gets the active focus. So now we need to understand what a focus scope is. So you say, a focus scope is basically, it's a built-in QML component, and it's a component forwarding your focus to whatever child component requested the focus with this focus property. So if the focus scope gets active focus, then it looks, so which child component requested the focus last, and then passes on the active focus to that component. If that component is a focus scope again, the forwarding goes on. If it's not a focus scope, then this component, a rectangle or so, or your custom component gets the active focus then. That's the thing you have to keep in mind. Focus, request the focus, and then you have to get the active focus to the enclosing focus scope. And there's one tricky thing about the focus property. I said it's the last item where this focus property is set to true. It's meant really in a timely fashion. So it's not what you write in the code. It's really what, if you have multiple instances setting focus to true, well, it's hard to figure out which one will really request the focus, because it depends on the order of instantiation. So tricky business, but you were warned. And that's the rules you have to keep in mind. You have to understand what a focus scope is. You have to understand, okay, active focus, and focus is just a request. And if I wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you still have to remember that. So, a little example to make that a bit clearer. So we have a focus scope A, the outermost one. Then this includes two focus scopes, B1 and B2. And the focus scope B1 includes a leaf item, a non-focus scope rectangle, C1, C2. C1 is requesting focus. Focus scope B2, that's the one requesting the focus. Then it has two rectangles, and the second one requests the focus. So anyone caring to tell me which item gets the active focus when I give active focus to focus scope A? D2. True. Yeah. Oh, I have a double D2, D1, the D2, yeah. Well spotted. So now it made your task a bit easier. So increased your chances by 25% or so. So A gets active focus, then it checks which child item had requested the focus last, and that would be B2. The rectangles aren't visible at that because they are hidden in a focus scope. So then the active focus is passed to B2, and then that has to figure out which one, D1 or the other D1, requested the focus last. And in that case, it was the second one. And that's why the one on the bottom right corner gets the active focus. So, key navigation. So there is an attached property called key navigation. And how does that work? So basically, what I will show you is a simple version of what I've shown already. So 6 flags in 2 rows. And if you look at France, so that's the middle one in the top row, you would write something like key navigation.backtap. Okay, if I hit backtap, go to Spain, that's the top left one. If you hit tab, go to the right one, so that's Italy. So that's the built-in key navigation property you have. And yeah, let me show you. For a simple example, so you see here, you see the first row, so row 0, you see the Spanish flag, you see the French flag, and so on, and you see a second row. And there's a reason why I don't use a grid. I want to make a point. That's why I'm using 2 rows. And so you have the flag, the other row. And you see that we just hook up from Italy with a back tab, we get to France. From Italy with a tab, we go in the next row and end up in the UK. So if you run that, come on, it's building. There we go. So if you run that, yeah, it's cycling around, fantastic. That's working. So now we go one step further, because what we see here, I would say, isn't really good design. So we have the row 0, we have the row 1, so it's a lot of duplicated code, and everyone would say, okay, let's introduce a component for the rows. Okay, we do that in measured steps. You just have to check out, go to the next version, so I don't have to type so much. So, what changed? You just see, I put the row in a focus scope. Everything else is the same. So that would be just the first step to put this row into a component flag row, which a good programmer should do, introduce components. And what I want to find out is, how does the key navigation property work over components? Because in the end, your program will have components. You have a toolbar, you have a list view, you have a tab bar, and it's not globally visible. You can't just access the tab bar buttons from your list view. That wouldn't be a good program, where you can access everything globally, where you make every component ID globally available. Even if it's globally available, you shouldn't do it. It's bad design. You can't use that as components, because if you change a component, if you just change the ID, you break the other code. So it's nothing you should do. So we have the rows in a focus scope. What happens now? Well, oops, it's not going any further. I can press the key as hard as I want. It's not cycling around anymore. So why is that? And that's where you have to understand focus scopes and all that stuff again. So what happens there? The green boxes are focus scopes. That's our outermost thing. And then the lighter green ones are the two focus scopes we just introduced. And what happened is, so we give the focus scope to the big green one. Then the upper green one, the flag row, the top flag row, requests focus. It gets it. Yeah. Then initially the Spanish flag gets the focus. Then we tap twice to the right to the Italian flag, so the focus request moves. So it's then always first the Italian flag requesting the focus, then the French flag, then the Italian flag. And now we are at the Italian flag. That has the focus, and the active focus actually. And now we want to move it over down to the British flag. And it doesn't work, because the second one, well, it requests the focus. If I tap on Italy, it requests, the UK flag will request the focus, but it hasn't got the active focus. The active focus is still with the upper row. So, no cursor visible. Sorry, bad luck. How do we solve that? And that's exactly the problems you are dealing with. So it's what comes to our rescue is we will use force active focus. So we know where to go, and we force the active focus over there. So from Italy to the UK. So I'm just commenting. Oh, I should take out the key navigation back tab. So what I put in here is I put in a key handler. So when the flag receives a back tab, I move the focus by forcing the active focus. That's what I do here. So nothing. It's just the key, the more powerful key handler, the keys attached property instead of the key navigation property, and I'm using the force active focus. So let me do that quickly. Yeah, and there's one more, and then it should work again. Yeah, so let's run that. There we go. And yes, it's cycling around again. Because now the active focus is forced to the lower row. And then that means if an element gets the active focus, every enclosing focus scope up to the top gets active focus, which is nice. And that's a property we will exploit. So, just have to put that back in its original state, and then I should be able to go a step further here. Exactly. So what I want to do next is, well, we are still only halfway to introducing components. So while we did the first step surrounding our row by a focus scope, and now we want to move it into its own component. And we also want to do yeah, we are there. And we also want to introduce a generic cursor component. So at the moment, what we have in this flag button, hang on. Okay. Now I'm a step ahead, I think. No. Yeah. Okay, I just backtrack. That's the nice thing about version control system. Just back in history, in time. A perfect time machine, actually. There we go. So what we have here is the flag button. And we have this state machine. So when so the initial state would be show no cursor at all. So it does not have active focus. That's written here. So show no cursor. The focus state is when it shows the yellow cursor, and when it has the active focus, it shows the yellow cursor, focus cursor. So you have that in the button implementation. So you don't have a single button. You have flag buttons, you have push buttons, top buttons, tool buttons. In the Harvester we have quick access buttons, main menu buttons. We have a whole slew of buttons. And yeah, we have list view items also. And all of them need this state machine logic. And you don't want to have, don't want to duplicate that code over and over again. Of course, you won't like it, believe me, because if you have to change it, you have to change it not at one place, but at 10 places. So good design says, move this state machine to your cursor component. And also move all the logic handling the cursor moving into the cursor component. That's the responsibility of that component. And that's what I do in the next step. And now it's really the next step. Okay, half time. And you see, I got rid of the state machine down here and have a cursor component in there. And the cursor component, it's what you would expect. It got the state machine code, and it got some code to do the navigation. But we will come back to that, because at the moment it's not working. It's broken, and we have to fix that slowly. But you see already, you see the keys handlers for a back tab, you see it for a tab. So it's all there already. And yeah, that's the visual part of our simple cursor, so it's all also in there. So all at the right place now. Our main component now looks like this, as you would expect. It's just instantiating a flag row component twice. Key navigation, broken, nothing working. We have to work on that. So, Yeah, so we did the first two things. We moved the state machine code, the visual part of the cursor, and the key and mouse handling into the cursor component. So we did that. We did the second thing. We are using force active focus everywhere. So you remember, well, we had two ways of moving the cursor. One was with requesting the focus with a focus property. The other was force active focus. And we saw, well, the requesting the focus is not enough. So we have two ways of doing that. Sometimes we can do it this way, sometimes that way. We don't want to do that. We want a uniform way. So we use force active focus. And the third one, and that's why our navigation still doesn't work, that is coming now. Why doesn't it work? There's a pretty simple reason for that. So first of all, we have to understand a bit what happens if I tap on the, that's the French flag. And so if I tap on that, okay, the event handler, the keys event handler gets the tab, then moves the tab. Well, it doesn't really know what to do. It must somehow move it to the Italian component. So it doesn't know what to do, so it moves the tab up to the, well, to the cursor component. That's where it's originating. The cursor component, what shall I do with it? I don't know anything about Italy. I have to move it up. So it moves it to the flag button component. The flag button component is now in the flag row. It knows about its neighbors. So it's moving it over to Italy. And Italy is moving it down, down. So to the flag button cursor, that's the hierarchy, the components we just introduced. So it's going up the component hierarchy to the place where you know, okay, where you have the information about your neighbors. The cursor component shouldn't know anything about which neighbors there are. Neither should the flag button. Would be totally wrong design. So you're moving it up to the place until it reaches the component which knows, oh, there is a neighbor to France, and that's lovely Italy. So over we go, and then we go down the same hierarchy on the other side. If we tap on Italy again, it goes up, 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 up. It goes even one further up because we are now changing rows. Okay, it goes over there and goes down again. So we have one big problem here. If you remember the key navigation property, which you would use to specify go from A to B. Well, it has one tab property, one back tab property. Okay. But here you see you have from the flag button Italy component, you go up with the red arrow and you go down with the blue arrow. So your one property has to handle two directions. It's not possible. Can't work. So it would have to be ambiguous. Doesn't work. So, and the way around is to introduce a new key navigation structure or component attached property, which has two tab chains for each of tab and back tab. So you need one chain for going up with tab, and you going up here, that's this one, and you need a chain for going down. And that's, so the original key navigation property is only made for for single components, basically. It doesn't take into account that you have a hierarchy of components where you move things up, over, down, and so on. So it's not made for that. So we need more of these tab. So we need a tab up, a tab down property, a back tab up, back tab down. It's not the Dow Jones property. So what I did is I introduced a key nav attached property. So that was fun. So I could learn how to write my own attach property in C++. The documentation is perfect for that, so not really difficult if you follow the documentation. If you don't follow it, you iterate. So, and I obviously didn't follow it right away, but made it in the end. So I use my own keynav attach property with the up chain for tab, a down chain for tab, and the same for back tab. So attached properties are a nice thing. It's a bit like multiple inheritance in C++. Because if you didn't have attached properties, you would have to declare these 4 properties in every component you're using. That's a nasty thing. A lot to write. So you don't have to do that. So it's declared once and you just use the keynav property like you use the key navigation property. So your middle flag button would look like that, keynav.backtab up. And that's the one bridging over to the next stack of focus scopes. So it's going to, backtab goes to the left. So flag 0, keynav, backtab down. It's going down the other stack. So it's coming from the middle stack, going over there. Now for your, it would be there, going down. So yeah, so I'll show you the code and that it's really working. It's not just PowerPoint slides. Parsing, sorry, I was too fast. And it's building. And now it should work again. And it does. Perfect. So, hang on, a bit of code. Now you saw that already, how to hook these things up, and I think the diagram showed you where to go. So from the bottom, from the cursor, you move it up to its enclosing property, moving up, and somewhere you move it to the right. Yeah, and cursor uses what? Let's look at this one. So that's a funny thing. So when the cursor gets a tab press, it first goes there. So this expression means basically it's evaluating. It's going up the hierarchy over and down to the other item. So and here it's an assignment. You are assigning the middle flag, say, to the left flag, and for the assignment goes just the other direction than the tab. So that's all, and that means this just gives the tab to the other button. Pretty simple code, I would say. It's harder to understand than to actually write the code. So, yeah, we can, of course, we want maybe a key press if we select things. So if you want to drill down a hierarchy, you add on-pressed handler, check for the return key, go to the press state, that's the orange cursor, accept your event, and off you go. And in the released handler, you go back to the yellow state. So basically, that would be this one. So now if I hit return, you see the select cursor, and it would normally go down into to the next page or so. Okay, and the code you have seen, and yeah, that's about that. And now, really interesting thing is key navigation list views. So we are pushing us up a little bit, so it's getting more and more difficult. problem with list views is you can forget about the key navigation property at all, the new one and the old one, because you don't. A list view item has no concept of a previous item or next item. There is no way to get the previous or next item in a list view. If you're in a list view delegate, no chance. So you can't specify with a key navigation property. If you're in item 5, okay, key navigation, back tab, item 4, key navigation tab, item 6. You can't even write it. So what to do? We have to do it differently. So we have to move the focus request and hence the active focus in a different way. We can't do it with a key navigation property. And the other lesson to learn there is the key navigation property needs to know the items to which it moves in advance. And the list view is a dynamic thing. So what we will use instead is using the current index. So the current index, and you have a decrement index, current index function, an increment current index function. That lets you manipulate the index. So if you're at item 5, just say, okay, I want to go to item 4, just decrement the current index. The other, with increment current index, the other direction. So that's how you do that. And current index is requesting the focus. You just have to make sure that your list view has the active focus. If as soon as the list view has the active focus, changing the current index will move around your cursor, will move around your active focus. So simple. But we have to implement that properly. We use what Vladimir called overloading or virtual functions in QML. So the only difference between our list view solution and our button solution for the cursor is the way how you move the cursor. With the buttons, you do it directly. You can specify go to there. With the list view, you go through the current index. So that's the only difference. And then there is one additional problem, and that is you have to, when you move into a list view, you come from the, I just show it in the code. Then it's always simpler to visualize it. So what you want to do here, you go from a button into a list view. How do you solve that? And the problem is you're jumping from basically key nav properties to current indexes. And the way to do it, you introduce a base list view component, and this base list view component has a do tab function. The do tab and do back tab functions are the ones called by your key handlers on the right component. And then it's pretty simple. If you're moving into the list view with a tab, you go to the beginning. So that's what's written here. Position the view at the beginning. You want to see the cursor. It shouldn't be hidden somewhere. You set the current index to 0, and you give the active focus to the list view. Remember, current index requests the focus, and only if you pass the active focus to the list view, then the items get the active focus. So it's tricky stuff, but it works. So you can see that we can tap smoothly from buttons to list views, and the nice thing is that the code is actually pretty simple. So we still have the basic cursor component, and that's pretty much the same as we had from the beginning. But the only thing where the button and the list view item cursor differ is the implementation of the tap and backtap functions. So if we look in the list view item cursor, well, we use this current index to do what we have to do. And in the button cursor, it's simple. It's just forcing the active focus on the other button. So nicely hidden away. So that is what you see here is basically using a question. Hang on, you need a mic. The lady on the left there.
Hi, I just wanted to ask if you could show the code where you jump from the buttons to the list view, where that's happening.
Sure. Where's my thingy here? So that would be the base list view. So you do a tap on a button. So you are basically you are in the base cursor component. You do a tap. That's this function here. This resolves to finally to your list view. So this is basically a reference, a dereferencing to your list view. And then we go to the do tap implementation, which is in the list view item cursor. So that's do tab. There we go. And then here we have okay, have to hurry up. No, we don't go to the list view item yet, but we go to the base list view. So we end up here in the do tab, and that's the code I just showed on the slides. I hope that answered your question. And you get all the code. So that's solved. I have 5 minutes left, so I have to hurry up a bit. Need the slides. So I want to give you at least an idea. So I skipped the mouse handling because that's the easy part. You know how to do that, or touch handling. Let's have a look at dynamic language change. And so what we want to do is on a screen we want to change dynamically from German to English. Problem with in a nutshell what's on that slide. The problem with QML is you don't have a language change event as you are used to from Qt C++. It's not there. Sorry, guys. It's just not there. So you have to think of something else. And it's not there because a Qt Quick 2 application doesn't know anything about QWidget. That's how it was designed. So no surprise. No QWidget, no language change event. So you have to do something on your own to replace that mechanism. In Qt 4, you at least have the Qt declarative view, which is a widget, and you have a language change event to there, but nothing in Qt Quick 2. So we need to rebuild the language change infrastructure. And we built something like a translation manager which emits a signal language change. So that's our own class. And that has a set language function. And when you set the language, it changes the QTranslator object, loads in a new language. But then you have to make sure that all the strings, the translatable strings, get translated. You know how to do that in Qt C++, so I can safely skip that. But it's a bit of a trick in QML. So that's all the C++ stuff. And that's the QML stuff. So in you have to write something like, well, a text property of the text component, QSTR, that's the TR for QML of city, plus G under TR plus language change. The G under TR is just a global variable, which is a handle, a pointer to your translation manager, where you actually change the language. And the language changed property is a property of your translation manager, and it just returns an empty string. So it doesn't change the thing to be displayed, just adds an empty string. So whenever a language change event is sent around, this means the notification signal of the property fires, and this thing here must be retranslated, must be re-evaluated. It calls QSTR again, you have a new translation. That's how it works in QML. And so that's all the mechanics you can read through. One slide about dynamic theme change from color to grayscale, or 2 slides. The basic thing is, well, you want to say you want to replace all your colors, obviously, all your color codes, they are colorful and gray, and you want to replace the text colors. Is there a text color somewhere? Text color here, that's the one. And instead of writing these things directly into your code, you write something like gtheme, your global theme object. Then you can structure that in different things. So you want to theme a list view item, you want to theme a push button, a tab button, and so on. And then it's the background color. So it's basically an attached property. And when you change from color to grayscale theme, this QGtheme global variable gets changed. And thanks to property binding, this means that every expression using a G on the theme must be re-evaluated, and that triggers the change of your theme. So that's how you implement a theme. I'm done. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Burkhard. We have about 5 minutes for questions, if anybody has any.
To the left there, I think.
Right.
Hi. You showed how to do forward and backwards navigation with tab and back tab, but some button interfaces also have up and down. How would you do that?
You would do it basically the same way. So left and right is probably pretty simple. Depends obviously on your interface, but on the Harvester we implemented left and right like tab and back tab. It's somehow the closest thing we could think of. Up and down is different navigation change, and you would introduce a left up, a left down, right up, right down property like we did for the tabs, and do the same thing again. Or that would be if you want to leave your component with left and up, you have to do it this way. So on the Harvester we decided that it's a bit tricky to know where to go with up. So where do you go with up if you are, say, where's that thing? No, the other thing. Okay, don't find it, obviously. So if you have the toolbar and you have this list view below, so your buttons, 2 or 3 buttons are on the right hand side. What does it mean from, say, from the right tool button it's clear, go down. It's halfway clear. What does it mean from the left tool button? Where do you go with down? Especially if you have multiple columns in your list view. So what we did on the Harvester was we said, well, with up and down, you're not allowed to leave components. You just stay inside your list view. You stay inside your, well, in the toolbar, there's no way out anyway. And so that's the decision we made, because we thought it's a bit confusing where the up and down goes. And then sometimes you even have you have two buttons and then a big button below, so both go there. But if you go up again, where do you go? So we made our job a bit easy.
Hi, I have another question about, you showed how you use the property binding with the global object for the translation.
Yeah.
But the item you bind to, you said that it's an empty string.
Yeah.
So what exactly do you have to modify in the object to get the binding to work? Because if it doesn't change...
Nothing. That's the trick. A property changes when you emit the notification signal of that property. Mm-hmm. So you just have to emit that signal without changing the property value at all, and that already triggers the re-evaluation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks.
Any more questions? Oh, one down the back.
Vladimir. Now someone is tearing down my lovely solution.
Okay, so the question is, have you maybe considered actually abandoning the whole standard or stock built-in focus and focus scope mechanism and going for your own solution, maybe based on those attached properties? I mean, actually implementing your own key press handlers.
Yeah.
Within your attached properties and having your own infrastructure of all those custom focus scopes, sub-scopes, or whatever.
Yeah.
Because you're already there, it seems.
So your question was whether I can imagine to integrate that nicely into the built-in key navigation thingy.
Well, the question is, you almost, you attempted to build a nicer thing than there is in the stock QML, right?
A more powerful thing, actually. Yeah.
And you used those attached properties, and you're almost there with the relation to having everything being custom. And the only standard thing you're using is the key press or key event specifications. So the question is, have you actually considered maybe emitting those on your own as well?
I just
emitting all those signals on your own as well. I mean, from your own attached properties.
Well, that's probably the next step I should do with my solution. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
Extend it and then move it back to Qt. Yeah. I need some more time. Maybe I have it in San Francisco, so let's see.
Right. That's time up for this session. Only remains to thank Burkhard for his
Very welcome.
kind
Thanks
presentation.
for coming here.